Nobody owns this lake. It's been here for over 1,000,000 years. One of the oldest in Europe, maybe in the world. 2 countries share it. Dozens of villages depend on it. And no deed, no contract, no corporation controls it. That's not an accident, that's a principle. And it's the one thing our politics has almost entirely forgotten. I'm walking through Tushemisht, a small village on the Albanian shore of Lake Ohrid. If you've never heard of it, that's part of the point. It's quiet, it's ancient. There are stone walls older than most nations. A church from the Ottoman period. Families who have fished this water for generations. Lake Ohrid sits on the border between Albania and North Macedonia. UNESCO protects it, both the natural site and the cultural heritage around it. The water is so clear and so deep that biologists call it a living museum. Species survive here that exist nowhere else on Earth. And nobody had to invent a policy for that. The people who lived here simply understood, this belongs to all of us. You take care of it or you lose it. That understanding, that instinct, is what I've been trying to recover across this whole series. I've done a few videos now on what I'm calling the new Federalist Papers. If you haven't seen them, the idea is simple. The original Federalist Papers argued for a new kind of government. These argue for a new kind of citizenship. I've written about the social contract, about what we actually owe each other, about public trust, about what democracy looks like when it stops performing and starts functioning. And all of those roads lead here to this question. What is the commons? In older times, the commons referred to land, to pastures, woods, rivers, and coastlines, shared spaces held in trust by the community. No one owned them. Everyone depended on them. You can feel that here. There's no fence between the village and the lake. There never was. But the true meaning runs deeper. The commons is not just land or water, it is the full fabric of shared life. The commons is everything we cannot survive without and cannot rightfully own. Air because we all breathe it. Time because it cannot be hoarded. Care because it is not a transaction. Knowledge because it came to us from others. Dignity because without it, freedom is a lie. The commons is what connects us, materially, emotionally, culturally, spiritually. It is the public memory of our mutual dependence. Now, you'll hear people talk about the problems of our time as if they're a checklist. Climate over here, AI over there, healthcare in one room, polarization in another, grief outside altogether. But they're not separate. They never were. There's a word for this that I think more people need to know. Polycrisis. It means a situation where multiple crises aren't just happening at the same time. They're feeding each other. They're entangled. You can't solve one without understanding how it connects to the rest. I talked about this in my paper on the social contract, how our systems fragment responsibility so thoroughly that no one is accountable for the whole. That fragmentation is a polycrisis in itself. And in the piece I did on public trust, I made the case that when people stop believing institutions are acting in their interest, every other crisis gets worse. You can't address climate if no one trusts the science. You can't regulate AI if no one trusts the regulators. You can't fix healthcare if people believe the system profits from their illness, which of course it does. These aren't separate failures. They are symptoms of a deeper rupture. We have stopped protecting what we share. We have started monetizing what makes us whole. We privatize the sacred, we auction the vital, we trade the future for the now. The result? Disconnection. From the land, from each other, from truth, from time, from meaning. A 1,000,000-year-old lake doesn't care about your quarterly earnings report. It doesn't care about your election cycle. It just needs you to stop poisoning it. That's the commons talking. And we've stopped listening. If the commons is the container of life, then it must also be the lens through which we solve life's crises. That means we do not ask what is profitable. We ask what is sustainable and for whom. We do not ask who owns this data. We ask who is harmed if it is misused. We do not ask, can we afford to help? We ask, can we afford not to? If there is a problem, ecological, emotional, digital, or cultural, it is the commons that is at stake. And so it is the commons that must respond. In a prior paper, we laid out the social contract of the commons. That liberty is not the absence of obligation, but the sacred harmony between rights and responsibilities, that the commons, the earth, the air, the care, the truth, is not owned but honored. This contract is not a metaphor, it is a demand. It requires that we codify care into policy, treat health and housing as infrastructure for democracy, fund the arts and libraries as if they are immune systems, protect silence and soil with the same urgency as speech and capital. The social contract of the commons is not about left or right. It is about what we owe to each other as cohabitants of time. Let us be clear. The commons includes the land, but also the language. It includes the forest, but also the form. It includes the soil, but also the soul. The commons is the silence between two people who trust each other, the memory kept alive in ritual, the story passed down across generations, the public square that welcomes the unheard, the music no one owns but everyone sings. To protect the commons is to protect meaning. What happens when the commons is not defended? The water becomes poison. The culture becomes currency. The people become product. The soul becomes silent. And then we ask, too late, why is everything broken? Because everything was one thing all along. This is the fourth age of democracy. It must not be built on stronger walls, but deeper roots. It must not be ruled by markets, but by memory. It must not be funded by extraction, but sustained by care. So let us say it clearly now. The commons is not the leftover. It is the foundation. It is not the fringe. It is the framework. It is not optional. It is the origin. And from now on, if we are to survive, every great question must begin with this. What protects the commons? Who defends it? What part of it is hurting? And what is my duty to it now? Not just of governments, not just of NGOs, not just of the next generation, but of all of us, together, now. Let us revive the social contract of the commons. Let us legislate with its wisdom. Let us vote with its questions. Let us govern with its soul. And let this be our measure. If a solution does not strengthen the commons, it is not a solution. I started this walk in a village most people will never visit, beside a lake most people will never see. But everything I've been talking about, the polycrisis, the social contract, the things we share and the things we've lost, it all lives here, in miniature. Tushemisht doesn't need a policy paper to understand the commons. It never forgot. Maybe that's what the rest of us need to remember. Not as owners, not as observers, but as stewards, as ancestors in training, and as people who still believe we can remember.
We the many rise as one, bound by fire beneath one sun, not by chains, but by shared grace. This is the sacred commonplace.
Not mine, not yours, it's all we keep. The river deep, the mountain steep.
A trust we hold with sacred flame. The commons calls us each by name.
We were made for more than taking. We are bound by what we're making.
What is the common? All that share.
Truth and justice, land and air.
What do we hold? A sacred trust to God to give because we must. Virtue lived a life well lived. Give what the common heart will give. Do good in all things, great and small. Stand with the many. Care for all. Liberty is not not retreat, but rising strong with steady feet. Democracy, a sacred fire, born of duty, shaped by quiet.
We do not own, we hold in trust for those to come. For all that's just, each act must ask, does this serve right? The common shines its sacred light.
Who holds the right?
Each one the same.
In dignity, in voice, in name, and what's our charge? To serve with grace, to lift the whole, to guard this place.
Duty sacred, carved in flame.
Reason, justice, voice and name.
Compassion holds what power brings.
The commons builds what conscience makes.
Not for conquest, never change. Power must be clear, humane. We rise not to rule, but meant to serve the commons to the end.
Virtue lived, a life well lived. Give what the calming heart will give.
Do good in all things, great and small. Stand with the many. Care for all. What shall we fight?
Injustice blind.
Systems cruel and power unkind. What shall we build? A world made whole with civic hearts and sacred soul.
Not in ink is this declared.
But in every life that's shared,
Virtue lived, a life well lived.
the commons call.
Rise, forgive.
So let the commons rise again.
In every friend.
With one voice we claim the right to live in truth, to stand in love.
In every
To live in truth, to stand in love.
Is anyone out there? Does anyone hear? I'm calling to a world that never comes near. The lights were cut off on a Tuesday night. My mother lies in a hospital bed. I count out the coins on the kitchen floor. Not enough for medicine, not enough for bread. The river runs black at the edge of town. They say it's progress, I say it's pain. I work the hours that the body allows, and still I come up empty again.
I am not lazy, I am not weak. I am the woman the system forgot.
I sweep the floors of the ones who decide who deserves care and who does not.
My children ask me why the sky turns brown.
I have no answer I can give with grace. I only know that something has been taken,
something sacred.
from this commonplace.
I was not made to beg for what is right.
I was not made to suffer out of soul.
Who holds my right?
Each one the same.
In dignity, in voice and name.
Who bears my need?
The commons does, because it must, because it was.
Virtue lived,
A life well lived.
give what the common heart will give. Do good in all things,
Great and small.
stand
alone in the dark tonight. There are millions standing where she stands. The common sees her, hears the weight she carries, and answers with its 1,000 open hands.
Free care for the body when the body breaks. Free learning for the mind that longs to grow. Housing and the wage that honors labor. These are not gifts, they are what we owe.
I did not ask for charity or pity. I asked for what the contract says is mine.
Dignity without condition, that's the promise. The Commons draws a just and sacred line. The river can be clean, the air made whole, the hospital a right and not a prayer. Not one of us should fall without an answer. The Commons calls us each to show we care. Who cleans the air?
Who cleans the air?
Each one must try
For land and water and sky.
Who heals the sick? We hold that trust.
Free health for all, because we must.
Duty sacred, carved in flame. Reason, justice, voice and name. Compassion holds what power breaks. The Commons builds what conscience makes.
To live the life well lived. Give what the common heart will give.
Do good in all things, great and small. Stand with the many, care for all. What shall we build?
A world made whole
With civic hearts and sacred soul. What do we owe?
each other all.
No one unseen, no one too far.
Is anyone out there? Is anyone out there?
Is anyone out there?
Is anyone out there?
Does anyone hear?
Is anyone out there?
The Commons answers have no fear.
So let the commons rise again,
In every heart,
in every friend.
with one voice,
We claim the right